So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what film you're with?
My name is Nicole Mendez. I am the director and editor of Bad Child.
Nice.
John Matthews. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
John Matthews, the writer and director of MOTEL.
And I'm Rachel Ernest, and I am the writer and director of Moving Out.
Awesome. Yes, there they are. There's a lot of powerful women in these, it seems. Inner strength is prevailed throughout all of these films. They seem like they have that in common, you know? I mean, first of all, thank you for your story. That's the beauty of self-expression in film, isn't it? So I can't imagine editing your own interviews. Is that how that worked with Bad Child?
Yeah, so I shot everything, did sound for everything, because it was sort of in the middle of the pandemic when I was filming, and I just wanted to be cautious. And I primarily work in post-production, so getting to the editing process, you know, as an editor, you watch and you rewatch and you rewatch. It's kind of your job. And it was very, very difficult. I had about 15 hours of interviews between myself. I was also going through the reporting process, and I had recorded all the conversations with the attorneys and the police officers, which I decided not to go into that side of it with this. But just going through it over and over, I feel like I kind of re-traumatized myself. I maybe didn't think ahead of what that was going to be like.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing because you all have kind of a metamorphosis in common. You were a painter. And what's beautiful about it, Nicole, weren't you a painter?
Yeah.
And you sold paintings for the funding of your film, which I found just beautiful. You know, I mean, that's a perfect circle right there. I mean, you were a lawyer, John, were you not? I mean, how did you become a lawyer to a filmmaker? That jump was interesting to me.
I was, I was a lawyer for the ACLU, so, you know, I was doing what should be really fulfilling, but it wasn't my passion, you know, it was art. And I just turned 30 and 31 and decided, if this is what I wanted to do, film, I should just go and do it. So, I did a 180 and went into film.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, it seems like it's working out for you. It's wonderful. I mean, do you start with a concept? Because most of your films seem, you have a culture in there. I mean, what are you after with that? I mean, you had a documentary that did very well, and that seemed like you were exploring the culture of, a family in West Virginia, and now here you are again. I mean, is that something that, makes you engage as a filmmaker? Or
in film school, and then out of film school, my first doc, like you were talking about, was my family in West Virginia, and I kind of was worried about kind of going out of my family, and they say write what you know, and that kind of thing, and but it's interesting from an outsider's perspective too, because like I was with an ex-gang member in East LA, and writing a script together, and he was like, oh yeah, well, when the cops come, you piss on your hands. And I'm like, what? He's like, oh, everybody knows you pee on your hands to get rid of the gunpowder. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's something maybe an outsider wouldn't know, that an insider would think is like common knowledge. So that's something I guess I've learned along the way, is that, writing what you know is good, and sometimes coming from a different perspective and showing the world what is unique about that is good too.
So did you know about that motel? Because these are all North County filmmakers. It's kind of exciting, guys. Right? I mean, that's fairly rare. I mean, Oceanside is in a couple of these films right here. Like, how did that happen? You know, what was the concept? If you were to explain the film in one sentence, what would it be? What's your log line on that?
Yeah, I guess you know, a woman at a roadside motel, you know, kind of befriends an older woman and gives her a place to stay for the night. And yeah, it came from I was reading a Sam Shepard short story where Sam Shepard's character, I would say, is stranded at a roadside motel, and there's a snowstorm and there's no vacancy, and he meets an ex there, and she decides to put him up for the night, and then the story just ends right there. And I thought, oh, what happens next? And so I wrote this story, but cast it completely different and in a different situation, and wrote it for my wife's 92-year-old at the time grandmother. And
Awesome.
never
Who is
thought
up for? What is she up for?
So she's up for best supporting actress for this film.
Awesome.
This is her first time acting. Yeah.
So awesome.
And yeah, and her grandchildren are here today too, and a lot of her relatives. And,
Awesome.
She never acted before. I didn't know if she would be up for it or want to do it. And
Quite the singer.
Quite the singer. And she lived right down the street here in Oceanside. And that was, of course, the impetus to film in this area and everything. And she just blew me away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, wow. Welcome. Yeah, Moving Out was very beautiful. That's a beautiful
Thank
film,
you.
isn't it? Yeah. And it's Oceanside. It's kind of based here. Do we know the church? And you're from here, right?
Yes. So I was born in Laguna.
Oh.
And then lived a little bit in Santa Ana, and then we moved down here. So I lived in Vista and then in Oceanside. So we ended up shooting at two different churches. So all the church meeting where the man is asking about his gay son, if his gay son can be married there at the church. That's all actually at my childhood church.
Awesome.
In Vista, which is Grace Press, and then all the scenes in the neighborhoods were all shot in Oceanside, and I'm sure you recognize that drive on Coast Highway.
It's beautiful. Yes.
Right on the border of Carlsbad and Oceanside. So yeah, it's really a homecoming.
And did that give the film the essence in which it just oozed of essence because you were revisiting, it seems like there's a lot of, and even your camera shots, you had a lot of reflection and clocks, and it was amazing the moments that you took. You gave your characters those moments and us as an audience the moments to really think about what just happened.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I had initially started out telling another story. It was a story about these three girls, and it was like a love triangle, but I had been participating in some writers groups, and some friends and close colleagues kept asking, but why is she so scared to tell her crush how she feels? And so that had me do some soul searching and raise the question, well, it brought me back to community and family and, fear of losing your loved ones, really. So I think it was definitely, I hadn't anticipated it would be such a challenge actually to shoot in Oceanside. I was like, okay, we'll shoot in Oceanside. That'll be also convenient because it'll be more cost effective. And then the actual act of shooting in Oceanside was interesting. It was, I think it was interesting to see, who came out to support the film and then who didn't support the film. And, it's been a great experience. And
the congregation welcomed you if you got to, shoot
yeah. So
there.
it's a great point you bring up. So, so we were able to shoot there. Actually, trying to find a church was interesting. We were all gay and trying to find a church to shoot in, which was interesting. And then I was talking to my mom, actually, and I was like, do you think that Grace might let us shoot there? And she said, well, I don't know. We'll ask the pastor. And we had a new pastor there. And he said, okay. And, it's been an ongoing discussion, basically. It's not like a black and white thing, because the church is just a bunch of people.
And the characters in the film weren't necessarily your parents, or is that how it was? Because it was amazing. The first shot is Instagram. There we are. We're like, oh, okay. And through the whole film, we thought that your parents did not know, but it just was a means of non-acceptance.
Yeah, sure.
Happens.
So I think, the character in the film, she comes from a church that's a non-affirming church, basically. And so the parents are very, they're very involved. Everybody is very involved in the church. And I think what I wanted to portray with the film is that, when you go to a church, it's actually like a very loving, welcoming environment. But the problem is if you are not like a certain kind of person, it's hard because there's not really a place for you. And so, but I think what was incredible about the film is how much actual community support that we had here in Oceanside. My parents are actually here today, and they have become like big advocates, LGBTQ advocates, and also our neighbors who are like family, and they house the crew.
It was amazing.
So anyway.
Yeah, it was a very healing film.
Yeah,
probably.
incredible experience.
Yes, empowerment.
Yeah.
And Nicole, it was amazing how yours started with an empty chair because of you had the opposite of support. So you found your own voice within yourself, which I thought was amazing. I mean, that editing, did you have the distortion of audio because it was hard to be clear about the story? I always wondered that in your editing process. Is that how you chose that? Because it's hard to just say it out loud, some of the things.
It's kind of because I never felt heard. So it's more like I'm talking to my parents, I'm interviewing, and I actually wanted to interview them for the film. I asked them if I could interview them, and it probably would have turned out a completely different film. Because I wanted to finally open up that dialogue with them about this, but they didn't want to have anything to do with it. So I was like, okay, well, there goes my idea for the film. And then I was like, well, empty chair is really appropriate. Yes. And then the distorted dialogue was, just because it's like no matter how hard I've tried over the years to explain that, those experiences and how it's affected me, I just don't feel like it really gets through.
Yes.
So I thought that was appropriate. And I actually, when I was a child, I lived in Oceanside.
You did.
So I don't think I told you that, but this is very full circle.
Oh, yeah, it really is. How awesome. It is amazing because I'm filming to premiere in your hometown. There's something to that, there's something that really gives you an acceptance there, So it's student film. Best short, editing. What do you want people to walk away with? Because boy, oh boy, is that experimental, it's not a person in a suit sitting there talking about the effects of trauma. How did you heal? What is the end? If you could add one more.
So before I made this film, I thought I was done healing, which was I can laugh at that now. But I really wanted to, for one, kind of throw those facts on there and the psychologist interviews to show that parental support is actually very important. And I did a lot of research when I was making this film. And the effects that parental support has on the outcome of children who are sexually abused it's incredible. Like the distinction, and they've done a lot of studies on it and the outcomes. But then also kind of experimental approach was just because it's an experience that you can't really explain to people. Yes. And I've actually had a couple of people that were war veterans who have PTSD who watched it, and they understood, like they got it, because it's just, how do you express something that like there's not really words for?
Yes.
So that was my attempt.
Yeah, that was your attempt. That's it. Even if you help one person, it was good enough, right? Awesome. Well, do we have any questions from the audience? Anyone? Oh, come on. I'm blinded by the light, but there's got to be a hand raised. Yes. Motel.
Yeah, officially motel. I saw it there. We were a hotel, so maybe we were upgraded. I don't know.
I don't know. It's on the roads.
Yeah, I was just, kind of trying to show how she's a little bit scared there. Like, I don't know, when that thing goes off, I'm always like, oh, and the whole weird thing with the shower and everything, that she's just a little uneasy, and she was doing a favor for Lola there, and Lola was kind of doing a favor for her.
Right. What is the word for your film? What do you want people to walk away with, John, when you're
I don't know. Maybe just feel something. Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, I'm so honored to be up here with. I felt so much watching both of your films, and it was so incredibly moved, and I feel like my movie is such a little tiny moment, and these are like really profound things on both sides.
I think you're managing. I mean, you crossed a bridge. Those two people connected in a very beautiful way. Don't you think so? I mean, that was amazing to watch. Really. I mean, how did you ask questions to get all those interesting small tidbits out of when they're playing and they're
anything that you point to that's like, oh, good writing, John, was not writing by me, but actually things that they did. So Lola actually is a champion mahjong player.
Oh.
That was her just playing. She was really wanting to collect the money because she thought she won afterwards. And her singing, like the whole time, she's like, when can I sing? When's my part to sing? And yeah, she really, that's something that I asked, my wife and her family about, these things that she does. And I wrote that into the script about, she records herself saying, praying the rosary and plays it back. It's actually something that she does. So yes. Yeah, the most interesting things are not my writing, but just her. Yeah.
No, well, that is a beautifully well put together film. All these beautiful, right, guys? Any other questions? Yes.
I have gone through a lot of therapy and processed my relationship with my parents pretty well. We're cordial with each other. I have kids and we get together and it's whatever. But I think it only could have been a positive experience. I wish that, I like the way it turned out and it worked out, but I do kind of wish we could have had those hard conversations. But I think it's difficult as a parent, I imagine, when your child, you failed them in a way. And I think they have kind of gone through their own grieving process separately from me, unfortunately. I think it'd be nice for families to be able to do that together. But yeah, I feel like probably only good. It couldn't get much worse than it is. So. They have not. Maybe at the family reunion this fall.
Oh my gosh. Well, here they are, the U-turns of the night, you guys, and they're awesome. Let's give them a hand. Awesome. Thanks for coming.